Hey guys, this is ChaosFX back once again, and today I have a video that I have been meaning to publish for like a year now, because that's about how long it's been since I first started using it in Starcraft, although I don't know how old Starcraft is, but it felt like a year. It's been a while since I've laddered or done anything with Starcraft 2. But anyway, I have a strategy that has served me well in both single player, 1 vs. 1s, and also has done pretty darn well in 2v2s and maybe some 3v3s, though 3v3s I usually just mineral feed other people and then show up with a Marauder army halfway through the game. Anywho, just because that's fun. So, going into the strategy here, I'm going to go ahead and you can see this is kind of like a done map. I don't know how to get a hold of the developer tools that other cool people know how to do. But I'm sure I could have looked it up. I am just lazy, but I think I've iterated on that earlier. So here's my strategy. I'm gonna do this in sections, just to show you kind of early game, into mid game, into late game. Kind of give you an idea. Now the thing about my strategy is it requires a lot of intelligence, and I don't just mean the ability to make quick decisions, but I kind of do as well. Like, you need to know all of the unit counters off the top of your head, just every single one. If you don't, just look at Wikipedia, go into the unit counters, and just take a look at what kills what. You don't even need to use their unit counters, just think about what you're using versus whatever else you're using. Because the main thing you're going to do here is outsmart your opponent, out-harvest them, and hopefully make them waste more resources along the way. And you'll get to see that in some of my games that I'm going to show at some point. Alright, so let's get to this. This is mimicking very early game. So let's say you've got about 20 SCVs, maybe that. The first thing I do is, of course, wall off your Terran, and then you want to build a bunker right away and put 4 Marines in it. I just tell this barracks to just put 4 Marines right in there. Then you're safe from all the cheese, and that's pretty much the ongoing theme you'll see from my strategy here is essentially to get rid of all the cheese attacks so nobody can just cheese you out of the game. Come in with a strong but not strongest eco game right away. Build up a mobile army. Then once you have a mobile army, scan for counter units, build the appropriate counter units en masse to the point where they cannot do anything, continue scanning to make sure that they don't tech switch, and when they do, you meet them with the next unit, and something that I'll get into a little later, kind of the coup de grace at the end. So first things first, you want a couple of Marines more than this, so maybe let's say 4 or 5 Marines, so let's just grab a couple of Marines here. And maybe 2 Marauders at that point, 2 or 3. It's early game, so you're really low on money. So this is kind of what my standard defense looks like, and then I try to get a tank out as fast as possible. 1 tank, 2 Marauders, about 8 or 9 Marines with a bunker in front, and a couple of supply depots blocking the way. Now this will stop most attacks early game and allow you to just start ecoing up, get all your stuff together, build another command center, start doing your upgrades, that kind of stuff. So, next thing you want to do, let me ignore what I'm doing, don't look at that. Anyway, next thing you want to do is just start massing up until you can quickly get out your, I don't have any starports at this base, but you want to get your medevacs. So pretty much early game, by the time that the cheese is over, if somebody's four-gating you, this is the kind of army composition I will, oh, then 1 more tank. This tank I left here because I wanted to show you guys something cool. For anybody who doesn't know you can do this, this is really useful in siege tanks. If you click a siege tank to go somewhere and shift E, it will siege when it gets there. Be careful not to do this with more than 4 or 5 tanks, because they'll actually fight over the sieged position and never siege up. But it's really easy for fire and forget tanks. So you get a bunch of tanks, you tell them to, shift E, shift E, shift E, shift E, shift E, and that's it. All the tanks will go over and they'll all pick a spot and line up. It's really a good way to set up kind of what appears to the opponents to be like a multitasking tank line, when all you did was select 2 tanks E, select 2 tanks shift E, select 2 tanks shift E, select 2 tanks shift E, and your tanks will just spread themselves, and 2 or 3 is enough to guarantee you don't have to babysit them, and they will set up. Okay, so this is pretty much safe from 4 gates, this is safe from ghost nukes. What else have I fought? This is safe from zealot rushes. I actually do counters if they try to do 4-gate. If they try to 4-gate me, I make them make a choice. Do they want to fight 1 bunker and 2 tanks while their entire base is under attack and try to base race? Because like I said before, Marauders are much better at base racing than most units in the game. Anywho, so that's the normal strategy that I start with. Now let's go ahead and move into a little later game. Oh, and one base can support 4 of these barracks pretty easily. Oh, and I built this to show one very important thing that a lot of the pros actually get really wrong. You see where I built this command center? It's not at the ramp. I don't care how far it is. The seconds that you lose getting the command center out here to start harvesting is not worth them seeing that you're building it, you know, way before. How long does it take to build a command center? It's pretty long. Command center is 100 seconds, and I don't have one right now, but I'm trying to remember. I think the orbital on top of it is another like 40 or 50. So you're looking at almost 2 minutes notice that you're trying to expand to your enemies. Don't give them that upper hand for no reason. Hide your command center in your base, so they really have to look for it to know whether or not you're expanding or continuing to build an army. I mean, when they see this and no command center, they're going to think you're attacking when you're really ecoing up. It gives you a huge advantage early game, so don't throw that away. Just more random advice. Also, hotkey your command centers. Shift click, add another command center. You always want to hotkey. I have a lot of command centers, you can see, but that's because I'm doing a demo. Not what I meant to do, but we'll ignore that for now. The reason you want to do that is in the middle of a battle, you need to be able to select your units and then select command center. Boom. Command center. Boom. Because things like Dark Templar, things like bad positions, like you're coming across, like, say, this area, this is a good choke. Before you run through this choke, you might want to make sure that the Zerg aren't setting up an ambush or have Bailings down here. So, I mean, throw a scan. Scan is worth so much in combat. If you just happen to find something, you are absolutely golden. Alright, so I would never take a base out here the way that I just did. The first thing I do is lower these supply depots. I usually move this barracks out of the way for ease. You unsiege the tanks, tell them to go out this way, siege up, take your whole army, which I think is all these guys minus the tank. There we go. So we'll call that my army for now. So take your army, put them in the center. They're very mobile. You know, you hit stim. Be sure to attack moves so you get a few heals off while you're moving. Or you wait. Now that you can see how long this takes. I mentioned this in my tips and tricks video, but I really want to get into this because it's really important to the bio strategy, guys. There are far too few of the medevacs here, and I kind of ran out of supply, so I can't really show an accurate version, so I'm trying to do like little microcosms of this. But these medevacs should be done healing within let's give them a good 3 seconds tops. Now, what is the reason for this? I have 2 medevacs with this army, correct? Okay. Now I go ahead and stim up my army. Okay, and now we get an engagement. My medevacs are not healing a single troop yet. I might as well not even have these in here. It's good that I'm getting some stim off, but none of my damaged troops are getting healed. If this guy's under attack, he would have been dead by now. Now, finally, after all the healing is done, if this guy was in front, he would be tanking while they're healing, and that's the main point of the bio army. What makes it so strong is for the cost of nothing but energy, you can get basically free units the entire game. So never stim yourself out of existence because you don't have enough medevacs. I really like the medevac heavy build. I'd say for this army I'd have 2 more medevacs. So 4 medevacs with such a small army seems ridiculous, but when you get into combat and all 4 of your medevacs have not only finished healing all your Marines and Marauders as soon as they stimmed, but now they are buffing 4 Marauders out front. And like I said, double click trick. Get them right where you want them. Move them out. So these four Marauders are all tanking, while the rest of these guys are all fighting at full health and stim. You'll just roll over enemies that you shouldn't be able to. So medevacs are worth their weight in gold when it comes to the MMM army. You might think more troops is a good idea, but a couple of Marines are just actually going to slow this army down compared to having another medevac in the army. So just a supply warning for everybody who sees it. Alright, so we're getting further in the game now. We've got our expansion up and running, maybe a second expansion, maybe a couple secret bases. So let's go ahead and consolidate into more of an endgame army. So let's see, we'll take this tank, siege it up over here. And where's my other tank at? You. Alright, now you have to kind of imagine that this is more of close to the enemy's base instead of mine. What I like to do is I like to camp my enemy with this kind of army. Remember my trick of putting the medevacs on 3 so that you can tell them to go back when you're attacking. You see I have a Thor in this army as well. It's just really sick DPS, does really good anti-air if they come in with something that's decently good against Marauders, and you don't want your Marines out in front to fight it. Something like Void Rays and stuff like that. Thor has pretty good damage that he can shoot from afar and kind of soften up those targets long before they're in range of your Marauders to do any damage. Kind of keeps, it makes them play chicken. A lot of people overestimate the damage when you're, especially when you're laddering. They won't throw their army into something that they could defeat because a few shots might hit them and they get a little chicken and back off. So take advantage of that. I mean, it's just human nature. Try to save it. But one or two Thors in the army will definitely make them think twice because they look stronger than they are and they kind of mess with people. So I recommend it. 1 or 2 Thors. I usually have 2 at least, and I go for about sets of 2 tanks. I either have 2 like this or 3, and you put them reasonably far apart, and basically everything in this area, let me get all the tanks selected here, everything in this dotted area is pretty much doomed, and they're going to be fighting almost a full MMM army, so the few, supply it takes for these tanks is totally worth it. Okay, so this is mid-game. Now the point of mid-game is to contain your enemy and just expand eco like crazy. You're going to get MMM to 200 and just throw it at your enemy to get destroyed. So the early game was about survival with a good eco, so you have a lot of good economy. The mid-game is all about sieging up. It's all about pushing your way out and throwing this army at the enemy to cost him more than he costs you. Don't make bad engagements. Use your head. If you see that he's going a lot of like splashy units, like Hydras or something like that, you want to be very heavy in tanks. They are very awesome against Hydras. So you build a ton more tanks instead of Marines and a few less Marauders, and you kind of have an MM with huge tank support. Or if he's going, Mutalisks, then you, oh here, I have a Mutalisk example base. What I was talking before, wow, everything's mined out over here. Kind of wasn't paying attention. Alright, so this is the kind of setup I was talking about. You got 3 turrets, at least. It always takes 3. I haven't found a setup that I like with 2 because it blocks mining. But the Thor does not block mining, so you can just sit him right smack in the middle of the mineral line. Here is pretty much how you can defend against almost any number of Mutalisks. As soon as the Mutalisks go after either of these, you go ahead and run the SCVs over to it, and every single one of them should be focused on a single missile turret. That will keep the Mutalisks from picking off one of the 3 turrets while you're busy. And the Thor, plus the missile turrets, nobody's going to try to magic box 3 missile turrets with a bunch of SCVs repairing the Thor. It's pretty much impossible because everything is an attacking unit, and when everything's an attacking unit, your mutas are not going to focus anything unless you tell them to. If you tell them to, they bunch up and the Thor kills all of them. So it's a pretty safe base configuration compared to a lot of them that you see. And if I was, feeling like this is going to be a late game trophy base, then I need to make sure that I turn this into a planetary fortress. If you don't need a planetary fortress, though, don't bother playing it safe. Build another one of the orbitals. You get more scans, which means you always know what your enemy is doing. Like, let's say his base is over here. I know this is a lot of bases, but I could just be like, alright, he has no tech up there. He has expanded. His army's out here. I know what it's made of. He doesn't have a third. And let's see, I got my army going out here. Oh, did he take the gold? That's a really important one. Almost nobody checks in games. You need to keep an eye on that gold because you can't let some of the races get it. Zerg cannot get gold. Do not let them ever get a gold. They'll flood you with Zerglings and you won't be able to do anything about it. Check for secret expansions if you have extra. And just be like, oh, I don't know, there could be something out here. So anyways, that's all taken care of. Now to finally move into the coup de grace. We've been doing ground MMM plus solid counters, and that's really important. The solid counters are the most important thing about my build. You just counter whatever they have using mass scans. Use SCVs instead of mules. Use mules on risky bases, and use the supply depot trick if you ever need to, just because you can. But I have a lot of idle SCVs. Anyways, I don't care. 36 idle SCVs. So let's see. What else? Alright, so you've been hitting them with basically everything they can't do anything about the whole game, but it's still going to be rather even because this is a very defensive strategy. It's not very offensively oriented. You've been building up a lot of upgrades, so that helps. You make sure you get, all your upgrades for that. I highly recommend Blue Flame. I do a lot of harassment. So on top of being a really defensive build, you know, you're always on the defensive. One thing I make sure I almost always do is just do a lot of drop harassment. Now, drops with Vikings are really good against Zerg because you can multi-use them. They're actually really good against Protoss too because they tend to send stalkers after you, which means that their stalkers are going to leave the front line to go defend their bases. So you can get a lot of harassment off with Vikings. Also, you know, obviously the Blue Flame Hellions are really good harassment. I recommend 4 Blue Flame just because of the power. Now, this is another common theme of my strategy. Always overkill and never tip your hand until you have the strongest unit in your build. So if I were to do Blue Flame Hellions and send 1 Blue Flame Hellion out right away to my opponent, that would tell him that Blue Flame Hellions are on the way, and he would build the counter unit. There is no reason to do that. Hide it until you have 3, 4, then send them all out and go harass somebody. If you're not going to do it by land, you can actually build with 1 factory all 4 Hellions in the same amount of time it takes to build a starport, a tech lab, and 1 medevac. So keep that in mind. That's my other famous harassment trick, is the instant 4 Hellions, where I build as soon as this is done. I start on the starport while building the Blue Flame, and 4 Hellions later, just about 3.5 Hellions. Once the last one comes out, jumps in the medevac, flies over, drops on his base, destroys a bunch of stuff, takes off, leaves. Hellions are great for towers. Not very many things that people waste on towers. You know, Marines, Zerglings, drones. They're not good against Hellions, so it's kind of funny, especially if they have like the trees. You can get a lot of kills with a Hellion sitting on the tower. So they're good. They're good to reuse like that. Awesome, awesome, awesome harassment. Just try not to use it. The whole point is to make him waste units while you don't, because you're gonna out-eco him. That's the point. You cut the map down the center. When all is said and done, you're gonna have more. Okay, finally the coup de grace. So this is the big thing. This doesn't work against Zerg. If you're doing Zerg, the coup de grace is Mass Thor. Mass Thor against Zerg endgame is really strong. Like, don't underestimate it. And if you need to, get some Vikings, but if you let them get Broodlords without dropping them and, you know, maraudering it to death, then you really need to start getting your game together and get Vikings out, get a bunch of siege tanks to handle the ground units, because there's going to be ground support. There's almost never air support for Broodlords. That's just too expensive. So focus on a huge ground army and a bunch of Vikings, and it's really expensive and hard. So your biggest thing is, like I keep reiterating over and over, scan, scan, scan. You need to know when those Broodlords are coming so that you can do any kind of tech switch, or so that you can stop it by dropping it when it's turning into a greater spire. And like I said before, Zerg almost never double up on their tech. So if you kill something in their main base, you can pretty much be assured that it's gone forever, and they'll have to completely rebuild it. So a nice trick that I do about, maybe I'd say mid-late game, is I drop them, kill the infestation pit and the hive. That is so annoying. I've used to play as Zerg a lot, and that is one of the most annoying things you can do. They lose over half their tech. They have to rebuild a hatchery, or they just take another hatchery. They'll probably do it in their expansion, turn it into a lair, because they didn't do that. They only had 1 hive, no other layers anywhere. Then they have to build the infestation pit again. Then they have to build the hive again. And this whole time that they're rebuilding all this stuff, their tech is completely vulnerable. They lose their Broodlords, the Greater Spire, and that is it. They have to basically finish the hive before they can build a single new Broodlord. And you can just clean house when they're stumbling on their tech tree, and you have, you know, huge production facility where you got 4 barracks per base, 1 or 2 factories per base, a bunch of starports pumping out God knows what just to kill them all. I forgot you 4 Marines. Anyway, so there's 4 more Marines down there. You can ignore that. But I think this is about... This still might be a little low. Let's see how long it takes for these guys to all heal up. Yeah, this is way too low. Let's grab that many people. This is about the size of a good composition of medevacs to troops. So what do we got here? By the way, medevacs, you're kind of blocking. So about that many troops, maybe a few more troops, let's say. Let's say that many. Okay, now watch this. Because there's because there's so many medevacs per troops. When I hit this, we'll see. Okay, combat has just begun. We pre-stemmed, running into combat, still healing, still healing. So I've lost maybe 5 or 6 units because there was no healing. Now all 5 medevacs, 6 medevacs are healing my troops, and I had a good, I don't know, 5-6 seconds of stim at full health plus 6 medevacs healing, and that's a lot of damage. Okay, so I've beaten that horse to death. Let's go on to the end game. Ultimate end game is this sneaky unit. The whole time I'm fighting, people will probably not notice because they'll notice that I have 3-3 on my infantry. Maybe you know, maybe a couple of points into this. If I'm going Thor, I always make sure I get the Crucio cannon to 3 and the Thor to 3. So attack power up on vehicles at least. I usually go defense on that only if I plan to do Mass Thor or Mass Siege Tank. Sometimes people's builds are so terrible you can get away with that. I had a guy that went all Hydralisk, just all Hydralisk, and I was able to just do nothing but Thors and Siege Tanks. That was one of the funnest games I ever played. But anyway, so one thing you'll notice here, I 3-3 here. When they look at the medevac, they just see 3 armor. Now this could conceivably just be because I really value my medevacs, but no, it's because ChaosFX's sneaky strategy of fast tech switch. Like I said before, you build 5 or 6 starports, you start pumping out battlecruisers like crazy, and this is kind of mid-late game. This immediately turns it into the late game. When 5 to 10, 0-3 or 0-6 battlecruisers show up, that's pretty much it. It's so hard to fight a battlecruiser with 6 armor with Protoss and Terran. It's almost impossible. They each have 1 unit that can stop it. Zerg have 1 unit, but it's the Corruptor, and the Corruptor is really good against the battlecruiser. Plus, you can't get Yamato because then they'll use the mind control and they'll all Yamato each other. So that's why I recommend Thor against them. But this is really fun against the other races, and actually does okay against Zerg if you have, you know, support, especially in team games and stuff. So that's pretty much my strategy. Quick tech switch into battlecruiser. This usually happens around 30 or 40 minutes into the game. I come out with 10 battlecruisers, fully upgraded armor. And it's just amazing the damage they'll do. They'll just mow down your opponent. They've increased their speed, so now they're actually kind of useful. This was a long time ago. You can see I'm showing my age here. How long ago I played Starcraft to say that they increased their speed. When was that? That was quite a while ago. But yeah, so now they're not stupid slow anymore. They're really good. As soon as they increased the speed is when I started doing this. So whatever patch that was, look it up. That was when I first started doing this strategy. I got 14 wins out of 15 games on ladder using this strategy. I did switch it up to Thors versus Zerg. I never took battlecruisers out against Zerg with Yamato in mass. If I did, I had a huge Thor army to back them up. Or I was just winning so badly it didn't matter. But that's it. So there's 3 parts to this game. Defend at the beginning. Own the map in the middle. You have the most mobile army except for that Thor, but you don't need to worry about him too much. He's only when you've like basically, the Thor shows up when the rest of the tanks show up. When you've got a person against the ropes and you at least have a choke and you just need to hold that choke, a couple of Thors with your army. But if you don't, you can see this is a really fast army. Like let's say I'm here and he's attacking this base.
You gonna give me orders?
So I have stimmed up and sent my units in here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. We're finally engaged. He got 6 seconds, and I was, you know, this is a huge map. This is an 8-player, so I was probably a good halfway across the map. He got about 6 or 7 seconds. Now compare that to the Thor that's still making its way over here after I've finished talking. So MMM, really mobile, great mid-game composition, but you know, anybody is going to start countering you if you only stay 1 unit. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so that's it. And then end game, you show up with the trump card, whether it's Mass Banshee, Mass Thor, Mass Battlecruiser. Upgrades are a king. That's really what it is. But I highly recommend the Battlecruiser, because if they're not ready for the Battlecruiser, they can't do anything about it. There's no way to like retroactively win a game you weren't prepared for Battlecruisers. It ends every game in which you catch somebody off guard. And that is a fact of StarCraft. And that is probably one of the only ways that Terrans can seal the deal endgame, because it gets a little tricky to move around when your mech is so heavy and immobile. But yeah, so there you go, guys. The eco-heavy, tons of fun because of all this tech switching, and I assure you it is fun to just show up on your enemy's doorstep with the last thing he expects you to have. It's just a great strategy. I highly recommend it. I'm really glad I did this. I've been wanting to get this strategy out for a while now because I'm not the strongest player. I never really got past... I beat people in Silver League, unfortunately, but I was favored against them because of that invisible number, whatever it is, the M something, EBR, ERB. There's some like secret rating that they give you that decides whether you're favored or not. And I got so favored so quickly because of this strategy, and because I played long games. I didn't like cheese, so I would play 20, 25-minute games. And when I came out with 10 battlecruisers at the end of a 20-minute game, I guess that really adds to your score. And so of course I end up with this ridiculous score. I'm like Bronze League 40, and they put me against Silver 1 and say that I'm favored. And so I'm like, oh good, so I get to fight like one of the hardest guys in the next league, and I don't get any experience. And it got really ridiculous to the point where like I would slaughter people who were favored against me and get like 13 points, and then I would play another person who was better than that person and get like 5 points. And I'm like, I really don't play this game enough to ladder. And so I played it for fun, and I never got out of Bronze League. So my opponents, unfortunately, are not great for the games that I'm going to be casting. But from my point of view, they look like some of them could be. Some of them were. Some of them were pretty decent, and I did beat them. But a lot of them, you watch the replay and seeing it from their point of view, you're like, I may have overestimated them in the game. But I still think I played well, so a lot of these I'll be casting is essentially that. It'll be me showcasing this series of tactics, how to make quick decisions when you're playing the game. That will really save you the game. Like I said, I've played a lot of people who are a lot better than me, and I kicked their butts, and that's what I want to help you guys do. So I hope you enjoyed this. It looks like I've been going on for about 30 minutes. No, longer. No, less long than that. Wait, is it longer or less long? Darn this inaccurate in-game clock. Why is there an inaccurate in-game clock? Anyways, so it said about 30 or 40 minutes when I started, so I'm assuming this is about a 30-minute video. So I'll probably split this in half, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And stick around. There will be, if you came here for the Starcraft, don't worry, there will be more Starcraft later. If you came here for the Anno, like absolutely no one did, that will be up soon. I'll have my first Anno video. I'm going to be doing an Anno video. And then finally, my patient fans, whom I love and are the most patient and awesome fans ever, haha, hint hint, we'll get some DFO Fair Arena. I'll go ahead and do like a live cast of that, where I just, people seem to really enjoy the live cast PvP video more than most of my other ones. So it's always great to get feedback from you guys. Literally the only thing I have is like the number of views and some of the interaction from you guys. I don't get a lot of feedback with anything I put on my channel. I know it's kind of a tiny channel. I don't have that many people who view everything, but the DFO people, you can only blame yourself. If you really like something, drop me a line and tell me that you really like it, because I really get no feedback from you guys. I hear from like probably 4 or 5 people, and I love it. It's great to hear from you guys, but the rest of you, it's fine to just watch, but don't complain when I stop doing it because there's no support, which is what happens sometimes. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed that. I will be actually spreading out into other games soon, just because I do feel like the pool is not that excited about DFO. I think I've contributed everything I could to that game. And I'll be playing it for fun, kind of like, ChaosFX Classic. I'll play it every once in a while, as long as it's free to play. That'll be good. So hey guys, have a great one. I'll talk to you later. Bye.